I've noticed something fascinating in the market since I started following the hobby more closely and paying attention to customer sentiment for about 2 years now. I bought Pokemon a bit for investment, but I started observing it on a larger scale 2 years ago. And one thing is absolutely fascinating to me. It's the repetition of discussions and conclusions that the community reaches over and over again, practically with every expansion. And all of this takes shape in such a way that people, generally, excluding those who look at the market a bit more broadly, maybe looking for more non-obvious things, are actually interested in one thing. The latest set, the chase set that's currently available, that's the only thing that seems to matter. Well, in this case, of course, between releases, Perfect Order, which nobody cares about, and Chaos Rising, which nobody cares about for now, and by the time people do care, it'll probably be too late for many. No, it won't be some outstanding set like Ascended or 151, but observing how people are currently judging Chaos Rising through the lens of Perfect Order, we have a perfect repeat of last year, when Journey Together, moving into Destined Rivals, was going through that spring transition period. However, just like a year ago during Journey Together, and even at the beginning of Rivals, nobody was interested in the current sets. Everyone was interested in Prismatic, and now everyone is interested in Ascended Heroes. 80% of the questions, interest, and transactions revolve solely around Ascended Heroes. Sure, it's normal because it's a very good set, and it's a set that has very cool cards, lots of chases, there's Pikachu, there's Gengar, there are God packs, and there's just a lot of excitement around this expansion. But let's look at things in perspective. Ascended Heroes, ETB in some places, is already starting to hit 3 times MSRP. And yet, it doesn't discourage people in any way. They buy in huge quantities, filling their closets, rightly seeing the potential of a good Pokemon set. However, what I can't understand is how even people who are in this hobby, because I noticed their activity a year or two ago, don't notice a certain interesting nuance. Namely, that by being so focused on a product that everyone already knows about, and that everyone is hunting for and interested in right now, as investors, collectors, buyers, shop owners, even people organizing play, we're all living in this total focus on the latest set, without really paying attention to what lies deeper. And deeper down, we have very interesting things, because while Ascended Heroes, sure, already has its price jacked up, for anyone who hasn't managed to get these Ascended Heroes yet, right now, this might be the last real chance to get in. But people are completely ignoring the fact that the price of the Ascended Heroes ETB is slowly starting to reach the price of Prismatic. Prismatic, which first of all is already a year and a half old and has already had major reprints, and now another wave of ETBs is hitting the US, with Europe possibly following soon. The price has already dropped, for example, in the US for these ETBs, but are people interested in talking about the fact that now is the time to buy Prismatic Evolution? No, most people are still completely focused on Ascended Heroes. The price is obviously soaring. Tourists in this hobby, meaning people who showed up just to make that short-term flip, are obviously very much into Ascended Heroes. They're watching the price closely, and that price can even rise by several percent practically from week to week. So, of course, the only thing people are interested in is this latest set. And I'll tell you one funny thing. A year ago, it was exactly the same, only the roles were reversed, because back then, everyone was absolutely interested in Prismatic. Prismatic, which as we know was in short supply in January, was a great set. People loved opening it, buying it as an investment, collecting sealed items. But what did people not see at the time when Prismatic was seeing all that success? And people on forums were writing that it was absolutely the worst time to join the hobby. And now, by the way, they're saying exactly the same thing. What were they missing? They were missing out on 151. 151 ETBs were available in very large quantities a year ago for 150 euros. And my question is this: what happened to 151 that made the price change so much over a year? Did people expect a year ago that, I don't know, some giant waves of 151 ETB reprints would appear, and that the price of 150 euros was less rational than the price of 150 euros for a prismatic ETB? I have no clue. I tried to fill my shelves with 151 as much as my budget allowed, of course. I managed to buy a few of those ETBs, and of course, it is a funny situation. A year has passed, and those ETBs that cost 150 euros now cost much closer to 600 euros. Absolutely nothing happened along the way, except that people remembered that a set like 151 exists, that there may not be any more of it, and that it has huge potential. And of course, they rushed to buy 151 at the moment when 151 was already in short supply. Those who wanted to had plenty of time to buy it. At first, there was no major problem buying it at MSRP, and even late hobbyists like me had months, even quarters, to stock up at still attractive prices. And you know what I will tell you right now? Nothing about the situation has changed. In 2026, during this beautiful spring, we are slowly preparing for more sets, and above all, for the autumn 30th anniversary, which, by the way, also won't change anything. The idea that people will buy the 30th anniversary set, open it, look at it, and think, no, now absolutely nothing good is waiting for me in the Pokemon hobby. Probably not. However, people are still living and breathing Ascended. They think it is an outstanding set compared to the previous ones, while completely forgetting about those previous holiday sets, like Prismatic, or even Paldean Fates, for example, which is also a set like that, or even older things from Sword and Shield. Very good products are still at prices that you could say are not exactly low, but are still rational relative to the age of the product. Because I am not a pioneer. I did not invent this. Of course, in this investment in collector market, the main ingredient is still time. So when we have a choice between two products, where one of them is an absolutely new product, and the other is a product that already has a good chunk of time behind it, and we don't really know if it will appear again at all, or in what quantities, it is incomprehensible to me why people are drawn so strongly toward the newest one. Of course, I can speculate on what causes this. Probably many people who show this type of behavior are relatively new to the hobby. But to a large extent, unfortunately, these are also people who look at the wrong metrics and the wrong numbers when actually assessing the potential of these sets. One of the most absurd things I have seen recently was a comparison of Ascended Heroes and Prismatic, done in the following way. PSA and prices of individual cards were compared with each other, even adjusted by hit rates, and that led to the conclusion that Ascended Heroes is a much better set. And to me, that is incomprehensible, because in a world where we are even trying to assess the long-term potential of certain hits, if we compare PSA 10 prices, PSA is a company that currently has huge problems with backlog, and I personally waited nearly 5 months for my slabs. So at this point, since the release was actually back in January and was really stretched out over several months, this product is only now hitting the market in large quantities, along with the booster bundles. Comparing these prices, when so few cards even had a chance to become PSA 10, believe me, these populations are going to grow significantly. Prices? I have no clue. Maybe Pikachu will turn out to be much better than Umbreon in 5 or 6 years. The point is that this whole comparison methodology seems bizarre. It leads people into confirmation bias, because if they strongly believe that, yes, this is the only product worth investing in right now, then of course you can find arguments for anything. That's actually my motto. Everything depends on how we choose the facts. Facts chosen with the right narrative can lead us to any conclusion. Let's remember that. And my advice for today, at the end of this rant, is this. If you think this is absolutely the worst time to join the hobby, regardless of whether you're a collector or an investor, then spend some time thinking about this. If you can't afford to buy this, then maybe something like this has good and attractive prices. And it's completely beyond me how a product like Surging Sparks, despite large reprints, of course, let's not kid ourselves, still maintains such a relatively low price, which is currently lower than it was in December 2024. It's truly fascinating to me. Look a bit deeper than just the latest set. And you'll find many gems there. And if you combine the research you spend your time on, Consult people who've been in this hobby longer, and rationally search for what you'd like to have in your collections. You'll find that just like a year ago, there are still products this year. Or maybe you have some products that you see right now, whose popularity is disproportionate to their potential, which seem overlooked at the moment. Be sure to let us know in the comments. Take care.